This is a video review of Cyberverse and Cyber Battalion Prowl. I think these two figures are a little underrated, so I want to give my own opinion on them. Here's a size comparison for Cyberverse Prowl. And Cyber Battalion is kind of its own size class, but I think it works well with these kinds of figures, especially this Cyberverse Optimus. So I've seen reviews that claim that this Cyberverse Prowl is kind of cheap feeling, that he feels like he's made of a light, cheap plastic. And you can see he's 71 grams, and I just wanted to debunk that because compared to Siege Prowl or Earthrise Prowl is 71 grams too. So they're actually the exact same weight. So they actually do feel identical. So this one is by no means cheap feeling. And these two figures actually share a lot of the same articulation. So you get a full 360 on Prowl's head. There's no ball joint though, it's just a swivel. You have fully out on the shoulders, and then you have 360 on the shoulders as well. It is on a ball joint though, which is a little bit cheap feeling. And then you have a mushroom peg on the bicep and about 90 degrees on the elbow hinge. And then you have a wrist swivel as well. You also have a kick, outward kick on the hips, but it doesn't go all the way out. And then you have full forward kick, full backward kick on the legs. And then you have about 90 degrees, a little less than 90 on the knee. And you also have a waist swivel. And then you have ankle tilt as well. And a little bit of a backward pivot. So he can actually do a good range of poses. Oh, and he does have thigh swivel as well on this mushroom peg. So it's pretty easy to get him into action poses. He's very posable. And then same with our Earthrise Prowl. This Prowl looks pretty excellent to me. The aesthetics are really nice. I especially like these badges on the shoulders, really pushing that police robot vibe, which I really like. It's probably my favorite kind of robot. One thing about the plastic is it is a really weird shade. It kind of has like a transparent greenish kind of hue to it. It reminds me a lot of glow-in-the-dark plastic, but I have held this guy up to the light for a long amount of time, a couple times, and he does not glow in the dark, but he very much has that plastic. Compared to your standard white plastic, you can see there's a considerable difference. So it's kind of a good thing, kind of a bad thing. It gives him kind of a cartoony look where it looks like he's kind of just glowing. And then I think the head sculpt is pretty excellent too. There is issues with no paint on the side of the head crests, which does make him look a lot cheaper. But otherwise it is a really great head sculpt. And I think I like it a little bit more than this head sculpt. This head sculpt kind of looks fat by comparison. This one looks a little bit more sleek to me, but that's just a matter of aesthetics. And I also like that he's got these hip skirts to kind of give him a little bit more bulk. And this Prowl looks kind of a little bit more basic in comparison. He does come with these two blast effects, which are actually pretty nice because they are translucent, so you can see the light through them. So that's not bad. They are different blast effects, but they go here. They can peg onto the front of the gun, of course. So actually good looking blast effects. I don't really use these though. And then you can just swivel this back to get it out of the way and clean up his look a little bit more. But overall, great looking robot. I would probably give this one maybe a 7. He's a little bit basic and blocky looking. The white really throws me off. I like that he kind of looks like maybe a virtual reality kind of cyber hologram kind of color, but it doesn't really work for a robot. But he does look kind of virtual, like a 3D model or something. So transformation for him is really simple. You just fold these sides of his feet, Then you pull up the whole front hood of the car. And then there's another joint back here which will allow this whole piece to move up, and then you get to fill in the gap of the hood right here, which I think is a good piece of engineering. So now you basically have the whole front end of the car. And then this does what pretty much every Prowl does, is you fold up the arms and then swivel them so the wheels will be in the right position, and then those are just going to basically nest on the inside of the front end of the car here. Okay, and then you want to fold up, I believe these blasters are actually going to fold up to be out of the way, and then the arms can just fold alongside there. I haven't transformed this for a while, so I'm kind of forgetting some steps. And then the back of the legs, you're going to open these panels, and then you can fold up the feet. And then you're going to fold up the hip skirts all the way so they're out of the way. And then you rotate the legs into position, so pretty standard car transformer. And now that I've got that back end dealt with, I realize I need to collapse this front section some more. So on that double hinge, that armature back here, this needs to be collapsed in a little bit more to clean that up so it connects to the back. And then you always do the doors kind of last for car transformers. And now these hip skirts are getting in the way of the fists, so I think these actually have to be flipped down, so I was wrong on flipping those up. Okay, and one other thing you have to do to clear space for the arms is you have to actually have these cannons have to be facing up so that they'll be in the windshield area, and that clears space for these arms to collapse down. Okay, so now I have everything in place, and one thing I didn't note is that the back of the forearms is actually hollow, so there's just a big gap right there. So that arm's going to fold in there, and then you see that's how he looks from the underside, and then finally you can close the doors and seal up this whole section. And there's his vehicle mode. Okay, so let's look at Cyber Battalion Prowl. He's a pretty chunky figure. He's about twice the weight of the other Prowls. There are a few things that drive me crazy about this figure. Is his chest does not really stay locked in. It just flops. If you move the arm, his chest is just going to open. This should have really clicked in place. And it just doesn't. There's nothing that really tabs in at all. So that's a pretty poor design choice right there, and that really hurts him feeling solid. But overall, he's a good looking figure. He's very streamlined. And then the other really big thing that really annoys me is that this panel here that usually becomes his door wings is just stuck on his arm. And they could have easily had a hinge right here to give him his door wings. It would have just been basically one more joint that they just didn't want to put the money into. And then this is kind of an eyesore in the back of his head, this panel that just sticks up. But overall, I think he's a great looking Prowl. He's very similar to his Earthrise counterpart. And then they do an interesting thing where they give him the sirens on his feet, which is kind of an interesting choice. And then I think the front end of his car is kind of bland looking. It's not that interesting. So he does have outward motion on the shoulders. He does have an elbow bend, but he does not have bicep swivel. So that's something I'll definitely have to modify. He does have the 360 on the head. He does have a full outward kick on the hips, and then forward and backwards as well. And then he does have this transformation kind of knee joint, which is a little bit in the wrong place, but it does function as a knee. And that's about it for articulation. He's very basic. And then transforming him is also very simple. First, you do have to rotate his head around to give clearance so his horns don't get hit. And then you're going to rotate the arms down. And then the arms are going to sandwich into the sides, and he's already halfway transformed. And then finally, you just fold up the toes, and then you just fold those into place in his vehicle mode, and you just clip everything together. And there's his vehicle mode. So robot mode for this form, I would have given him probably a 7, because he definitely needs his door wings to just not look like a generic robot. But otherwise, I like everything else about his aesthetic. And this is how all my Prowls look together. So the Cyber Battalion Prowl is very basic and blocky. It's just not a very interesting looking car. It definitely looks like a toy. The Cyberverse Prowl is looking okay. It's got kind of the same issue. It's a little bit blocky looking, but very stylized. And I think the Earthrise Prowl is definitely the best. Very interesting looking car mode. You don't really see this kind of model of car around. So I'd rate this vehicle mode as like a 4 for me. It's just really not interesting. I don't like the look of it. And this one's probably like a 5. It's also kind of basic. I'm not super impressed. I do appreciate the clear windows though. That is a nice effect. So that's my review on these two Prowls. I think they're both underrated. They feel really solid in hand. They're pretty fun. I would say this Prowl is this one's definitely a 9. It feels very solid for hand feel. And then this one, he's definitely a 9 as well. He's very strong. I don't feel like anything's going to break. He feels very durable. And then for how fun the transformation is, well, the transformation, this one really literally takes 10 seconds. And this guy can be transformed in about 15. So that's pretty fun. I think the gimmicks are pretty nice for the transforming. And they're well worthwhile. If these were Prowls that you were on the fence about, I definitely recommend that you go ahead and grab them because they're well worth it.